Hello, everyone, and welcome to my review of um, Casino Royale. So, I was supposed to do this on Monday and completely forgot. And of course, last night I was going to do my unplugged stream where I play guitar and stuff, but I did not get home. What was last night? Friday night. Right. I didn't get home until late, and um, by the time I would have gotten home, it was by the time I got home and changed clothes and all that stuff. It was past 9, and right now my thumb, as I explained before, I cut the tip of my thumb off, and it could possibly make it hard to play guitar. Although I don't know, maybe next Friday I'll try it because by then it will have healed a little bit. And so anyway, and it's Saturday night at 9 o'clock. So let's get started with the review. So I watched this movie. Well, I watched it when it first came out. It's not the first Bond movie that I've seen in theaters. The first one was GoldenEye, and probably the first one that I ever watched. I'm not a huge Bond fan, but I do I like Sean Connery, I like Pierce Brosnan, and sometimes I like what's his name, Blondie, the one that I'm talking about now. As for Casino Royale, I like him. He does a good job in this one, Daniel Craig. And then I've seen bits and pieces of the other ones with Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton. I watched part of License to Kill, and from what I saw, I liked. um, I've seen bits and pieces of on Her Majesty's Secret Service, which to me has the best soundtrack, or the best soundtrack, or best theme, or whatever you want to call it. I think Robert Meyer Burnett said that once as well. Um, but as far as Casino Royale, okay, so it starts off black and white. I watched it a few weeks ago, and I didn't take any notes because I didn't expect to do this at the time. But then later on decided, because I've been watching all the Bond movies, throughout the month, because November is Bond month. So I sort of had it on in the background. And it's sort of how I started off my Red Hour show. I was watching Star Trek in the background and started thinking about a certain episode of Muse from Voyager. And same kind of thing is, well, why, since this movie is one that I like, why not talk about it? So the decision came later on, and so I didn't take a bunch of notes, but it starts off black and white. He's trying to get his 00 status, so it is a, I guess, a reboot of continuity from the previous movies. Because in the past, it's always been sort of assumed that even though it's different actors, it's the same Bond, even though he doesn't age. Uh, I guess that's how most people view it. It's like the same Kirk from the original series is the same Kirk from Generations, except, like I said, he doesn't age. But what carries over from the previous film, the Pierce Brosnan films, is oh God, I can't think of the actress's name, but anyway, she's still plays M. There's I don't think there's a Q in this one. I don't remember there being a Q. But we are introduced to a new Q. I believe it's in Skyfall. So this is like a prequel almost, and starts off with black and white. He's got to kill this guy, and he's got to kill. He's on a mission to kill this guy. There's a lot of, if you ever watch the Jason Bourne movies, there's a lot of that in there. A lot of that type of action in the beginning. So he kills the guy, and he basically this guy like comes to his office or something, and Bond's already waiting for him there. But anyway, that's a black and white. When you see the MGM logo, it's black and white, and Michelle Ferry's here. I hope your thumb heals well quickly. Yeah, I hope so too. I took a huge chunk, like a quarter, like right there, and I mean it's a rough one. And I was saying earlier that last night I was going to do a little jam, but I got home late, and by the time I got home it was already too late. And like I said, playing guitar with that thumb, it's not impossible, but it'd be better to wait another week and let it heal a little bit. Hopefully it'll heal. I had to redress it today, and put some kind of powder on it where it stops the bleeding or whatever, because I had this gauze wrapped around it, and that was acting as like a scab. So as soon as you take the gauze off, it starts bleeding again. So I had to put like a pad, or I don't know. I'm not a nurse. Anyway, the person at Walgreens kind of explained it to me, so hopefully it should work. I'm just not going to mess with it for a few days. Anyway, so then after that scene, the credits roll and you see the gun barrel and the blood dripping down. And then he's in Africa, and he has a partner, and there's like I think it's a cobra fight or something, and there's a guy with that they're observing, and his partner like has eyes on the guy, and he keeps like they're speaking through the ear, and Bond tells the guy to quit touching your ear, and the guy that they're after sees that and takes off running. So Bond chases after him, and these two people have um, the best stamina in running I've ever seen in a movie, and that includes Tom Cruise in just about anything, and especially Mission Impossible, because this guy's running. He runs through a construction set. Bond is chasing after him. He's climbing over things. He climbs up the partial built building that they're building, and then climbs on and then jumps onto like this beam, and then climbs on it, and then at some point Bond jumps through a drywall, like that scene if you ever seen uh, uh, Blade Runner 2049, where Bautista like busts through the drywall. It's just like that. Again, this is a lot of the Bourne type action that's going on. He's climbing up things, and this guy's like hopping over buildings and down a building, and all this crazy different jumps and running, and I mean it lasts for a good while. I want to say maybe 10 minutes of they just running, and then the guy runs into the embassy, where the country where he's at. It's in Africa somewhere. I forget the name of the country. And basically, he's safe, And he has this backpack with him. And Bond says at some point, I need him alive. But then the guy throws the backpack as he runs into the embassy, and of course the backpack has like a time bomb on it, the pipe bomb, sorry. And so he no longer needs him alive. He's there's information in the backpack that he needed. So he gets the information, and then he runs into the embassy, chases this guy down. The soldiers in the embassy are chasing after Bond. He eventually shoots like these, I think it's like gas canisters or something, creates an explosion, killing like at least two of them, I think. And then he's in, and then he's back in MI6 headquarters, and tears him a new one, basically, and says he's reckless and all these things, and you killed a soldier, one of our, because Africa is still kind of colonial state of England or whatever. You killed one of our allies or something like that, and so then he's sent on a mission. So this guy was working for our villain, which is Mads Mikkelsen, and he's a different kind of Bond villain. He's got like a weird eye that's got like a scar over it, and he has asthma. I don't know why. I guess that's the villain of the new age. Has asthma. He's a nerdy kid. He got beat up as a kid or something. and that's what made him a villain. Because he's always got his inhaler, and so if you're hearing a hissing sound in the background, that's my Instapot. I'm making pot roast. Um, uh, there's nothing I can do to stop it other than turn it off, and I don't want to do that because I'm making pot roast. And again, for some reason, I can't hear myself. Whereas before, I could, so I might have to switch back to OBS or switch to a different streaming software because I cannot hear myself at all. So the guy that got blown up was working for Mads Mikkelsen, who is also in Africa or somewhere in a different part of Africa. He's trying to borrow. I think he's borrowing money from he's borrowing money from these people, some warlords or drug lords or something. I should have taken notes, but I didn't plan on doing this review, and I didn't rewatch it. I watched this movie a few weeks ago just because I'm watching Bond, a bunch of different Bond movies, and then I decided to do a review. I should have rewatched it. So my memory is a little fuzzy, but doing the best I can. So what else happened? So yeah, he's borrowing money from either, I can't remember if it's warlords or drug lords or maybe a combination of both. And that guy that blew up, they're pissed off at Mads Mikkelsen because he didn't get caught, but he got killed. And and he was supposed to deliver a certain amount of money, and he tells them that he will get the money, and he needs more time. Classic. And Mads Mikkelsen is basically funding a terrorist organization, and I don't remember why or what the motivation is, but that's his deal. That's what he's doing. So then Bond has to become friends with, or has to pretend to be friends with some guy that can get him connected to this Texas Hold'em tournament that Mads Mikkelsen is going to be a part of. And that's how they're going to get him, is they're going to basically those people are going to kill him. And I think they're in tribe like the town. I never read it. I never read any Bond book, but I'm kind of interested now. But anyway, so M sends him to this, that's his mission, and then, but he has a tag-along named Vesper Lind, who is the money handler. She's not Moneypenny, but I think they were trying to sort of hint at that they were. When I first watched the movie, I thought, because it's supposed to be sort of a prequel, I thought, okay, that must be Moneypenny, and that's like her code name or something. And her real name is Vesper Lind, but then the later movies introduced Moneypenny, and she's black in the Daniel Craig verse. So then she's basically there to keep an eye on Bond and not let him go too crazy or spend too much money at the tournament. So then at the tournament, he he's sitting down, and it's a Texas Hold'em. Usually they do in the movies, they do baccarat. Um, I don't know jack shit about baccarat, so it was easier for me to follow Texas Hold'em, which at the time was really popular. I guess it still is, but at the time it was like blowing up on TV and stuff. And it's a game that most Americans can follow. So, and most Americans know the strategy, to sort of bluff when you can and whatnot, and you try to put down certain bets to kind of get certain people. You want to get certain people out, and you can kind of figure out. You can sort of figure out who has a better hand or whatever. I mean, there's different strategies, but it's not just blind luck. Um, a lot of people say, "Well, poker's just luck." Well, it's not. There is strategy to it. There is luck, but there is also strategy as well. So then, the majority of, I mean, a good chunk of the movie is just the game, and like him meeting Vesper. Um, she sort of, they kind of like feel each other out. I know Bond. No, they're kind of like sizing each other up. Sorry, that's what I was looking for. And she figures out that he was an orphan, and it's also revealed that she was an orphan, and they get along. So they, at first Bond he's tough nut to crack, and he's not. He has he has his guard up and stuff, and he's not gonna fall deeply in love with a woman. He's gonna bet her and be on his merry way. Most of the time. But Vesper, he slowly falls in love with her over the course of the movie. But when they first meet, she's very cold towards him, and he's very, he's just his usual flirty self, but he's not, like falling deeply in love with her. But so again, a good chunk of the movie is just the game and interactions with him and Mads Mikkelsen. Some of the other players are kind of their own characters, and uh, there's that French guy or whatever is tagging along with them. He's sort of like a stand-in for the audience. He's sort of like giving exposition to the audience, but he's talking to Vesper Lynn about the the different plays that the players are making in the game and why. And he explains, so he's kind of a stand-in for the audience. So or I guess Vesper Lynn is a stand-in for the audience, and he's explaining to her how to play the game, and that everybody has a tell, and Bond is trying to figure out Mads Mikkelsen's tale, because you can see him. He's got the chips in his hand, and if you ever saw Tombstone, you see how Doc Holliday takes the quarter or whatever and flips them between his fingers. He's kind of doing the same thing with the chips, but he's doing it like back and forth, like this. And that Bond thinks that's his tell. And So he goes up to Vesperlin and he says, "That's his tell. Um, I think I can beat him." So he she approves him, you know, betting all in and all this stuff, and he they go through each player's hand, and it gets to Bond. He lays his cards down, and they're good. It's a good hand. Forget what it was, but it's a good hand. And then it gets to Mads Mikkelsen, and uh, he Bond was wrong. That wasn't his tell, and he loses, and he loses all the money that they had for the game. So now it's game over, man. I love doing that as much as possible whenever I can, you know, from aliens. But so then he's pissed off. He goes up to her, um, and says he needs more money that he can buy back in and he can beat him. He knows that he can. She's pissed off at him and she says that he's arrogant and she can't do it and she won't do it. And then there's a point where then there's a player in the game who shows up and it's Jeffrey Wright, if you know who that is. I think that's the right name. Commissioner Gordon in the Batman, or you've seen him in oh God, what was the other movie? I don't know. So he's an American, and he's been making little offhand remarks to Bond throughout the game, and eventually walks up to him and says, "You know, I'm your cousin from across the pond," and it's Felix Leitner. So if you've seen the other movies, you know who that is. He's from what do they call it? What do they call the company? That's right, the CIA. Um, because they use front companies, you know, to do their actions and stuff. Whether that's illegal or not is not up for me to say, but I would say, in my opinion, it's not. So he's willing to fund Bond. He says, "I know you can beat him." And he was losing terribly. But you gotta let us have the arrest. And he agrees to it. And then he tells Vesper Lind the situation. And he buys back in. And then there's a little break. And Bond, I can't remember how he ends up with a drink that's poisoned and gives him a heart attack. There is a Q in there too. Yeah. And Admiral Teague, I'm getting notices on my phone. Admiral Teague is coming up in 30 minutes, which I will be over there. Not on the panel, but in the comments. He'll be talking about Home, which I just talked about Thursday. Enterprise. And I'll probably say a lot of the same things that I said. I'll probably send in a super chat, maybe even a pooper emoji. I wanted to send Script Doctor one, but I also wanted to tell him about my since they were talking about, he was talking about his finger and all that stuff. Anyway, so it gives him a heart attack, and he has that's one of his, I guess, gadgets is he has a defibrillator in the car that he has. Uh, oh, that's what it was. Right. There's an earlier scene where he had to meet up with that person that I was talking about to get him into the game. Um, he like hooks up with this guy's wife, but at first it's pretty funny. Um, she's alone in like the front of the hotel, and this is probably the best funny thing in the movie. And she's like pissed off, or he got pissed off at his wife and told her to go away. And they were playing like an earlier. This is earlier in the movie. They were playing another game of Texas Hold'em where Bond was involved, and he wins that one, and wins the guy's keys, his car, and she's outside, and so he gets pissed off because he lost, and tells her to go away. So she's outside. Um, he tells the bellhop or whatever to go get his car. So he hands him the keys, goes gets the car, and it's that guy's car. And she looks at him and kind of smiles and says something to him, right? And they're kind of chit chatting and flirting and stuff. And he's like, would you like to go get a drink? And she goes, sure. Your place? Is it close? And he says yes. So he drives. So there's like a circle driveway, right? So he drives around in the circle and parks right back in front of the hotel, indicating, that's where he's staying, And that was a funny joke. And she looks at him and kind of smiles. Anyway, back to where I think it's the same car, right? It's not the famous one with the machine guns and shit, but he has a defibrillator. He almost dies, and then Vesper runs up to him and saves it. And like the defibrillator wasn't hooked up properly, and they're talking to him. They're trying to explain to him, like Q's there trying to explain to him. That's right, there is a Q. How to use it, and through his earpiece and stuff. And I think that's like the only gadget in the movie, like major gadget. There might have been one other thing that I'm not thinking of, but he dies, and she comes up and connects it the way it's supposed to be, and saves his life, and brings him, pumps his heart, and it brings him back to life. And he looks at her and says, "Are you all right?" And she's like, "Am I all right? You died, So this is the point in the movie where he's starting to have feelings for her, and she's starting to have feelings for him. There's also a point, and I don't remember if this is before or after this, but there's a point where they're walking in the lobby or to their room because there's a break in the game, and all of a sudden the Mads Mikkelsen, those gangsters or whatever, come back, and they're like threatening his wife or his girlfriend or whoever she is, and they can hear it in the hallway. So he tells Vespa, my phone thinks I'm talking to it. He tells Vespa to run, go to the room, and he hides in the hallway, and there's like a shootout, or no, not a shootout. There's a big fight in the stairwell, and Vespa at some point helps out Bond, but not like girl bossy, and like kills one guy, and then Bond kills another guy, and then he hides the bodies and tells the Spanish guy to like hide the bodies and get rid of the evidence and all that stuff. And then and then then what happens? Oh, then they go back to the game. He changes his shirt, and Mads Mikkelsen notices this, and but he's basically done him a favor, so he doesn't say anything because he killed off the guys that he owed money to. So then they play another round, and they play. Then we get to the end of the game, and this time he's still doing the thing with his hands, and he knows that's not the tell. And then I think he points to his fucked up eye or something. He does like this or something like that, and Bond notices it, and he's like, "Oh, that's the tell." So he goes all in, and he's Mad Mikkelsen's bluffing. He has I guess, okay hand, but not great, and not as good as Bond's. So then, and it's $120 million. So he wins wins, and then after that, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, Mickelson goes away. Felix Leiter handles the rest, and you could have stopped it there, but Bond, is supposed to return the money back to the Queen, and he's got like this. Oh, I guess the fight was before the heart attack thing, because after the heart attack thing, he has to go on this. He has to go recuperate, because there's some point where Mads Mikkelsen, right? Okay, so I'm getting things screwed up. Sorry. Mads Mikkelsen captures him at some point and beats him with like a rope, and that's what it is. Okay. Mads Mikkelsen beats him with a rope, and then eventually Vespa's been captured. I'm jumping all over the place. Vespa's been captured, and then right as Mikkelsen's about to kill him, that guy from Spain shows up, and you can see him kind of black out, right? But he can see the guy and recognizes him, and then they're at this like rehabilitation place, and that's when Vespa comes in, and he's all beat up, and she visits him, and that's when they really start to really fall in love, and he has to sign for or put in a password, because the money's going through like a Swiss bank, and the Swiss bank guy hands him a suitcase, and he says what's the password? And he looks at Vespa and he says, you should know. And she looks at him like, I don't know what it is. And he types in her name. So it's her name is the password. And then they have these conversations about their lives and everything that's gone on in their lives. And she was, in love with this guy, but things didn't work out and blah, blah, blah. And then it just turns into a romance from there. And then he decides that he wants to retire. That he doesn't want to do this anymore because she brings out his like better half, and like he doesn't want to lose any more of his soul through assassinating people and whatnot, and that he just wants to spend his time with her, and that he will return the money, but he wants to go on like a vacation or whatever first. And she still works for MI6. He sends in his resignation, but she still works for them. And then M is calling her, and she says that you don't see on the phone that it's M calling her, but she says that M is calling her, and she texted back that she'll be back in a month. And then they go through what's the Vienna, or the city that's on the water or whatever, with the gondolas and stuff. And they go through there, and they're like on a sailboat, and Bond is like steering the sailboat, and then the camera pans to this guy that she looks at, and then he's got like a patch on his eye, and she looks at him and has this look of despair on her face. So then they end up in like this hotel room or something, and he's laying in bed and she's standing in front of the mirror, and that's when she gets another message from M. That's what she says. And then, or something. I forget what exactly it was. I should just rewatch the movie, and then I could do everything in order. Just do this whole thing all over again. But I'm not going to do that. I'll probably rewatch the movie, but I'm not going to redo this. And then he gets a call from the Swiss bank, or from M. He gets a call from M with the guy, the Swiss bank, or saying there's a guy here from accounting that wants to know when you're planning on depositing the money. And he says, I thought I already did. And then he realizes, oh shit, she stole the money. And so he goes chasing. He calls the Swiss bank guy and tries to find out where the money what bank it had been deposited at, which is a local bank where they're at. And he goes chasing after her. And he finds her, but then there's the guy with the patch on his eye, and a couple other goons, and there's like this shootout and stuff, and they end up some old house or some old building where they're using floats to float up the house, which I didn't realize that they did that in Venice or whatever. And I guess I put two and two together, but he shoots the floats and it sinks the house, and the guy drops the case with the money, and Vesper is stuck in this elevator that's locked, and she ends up underwater and slowly drowning, and Bond is like furiously trying to save her, and he can't save her. Then towards the end, he pulls her out of the water. He finally gets her out of the water, but it's too late. He can't breathe back. He can't do CPR. Or he tries, but he fails. And then the guy gets the money case and takes off. Then he's talking to M again, and she says that Vesper had a boyfriend who owed money to some guy and or something, and somehow they missed it. And then towards the very end, he has her phone and a couple of her possessions, and there's a message that says "For James," and it's the name of this guy, Mr. White. So you see this guy picks up the phone, and he says hello, and Bond says, "We have a lot to talk about." And then all of a sudden you hear a bunch of gunshots go off, and he's getting shot, and that's where it ends. And Bond standing with like a AK-47 or whatever. And so, and then Skyfall picks up right at that same moment. The next movie, Skyfall, was horrible, but not Skyfall. Quantum of Solace. Quantum of Solace was horrible. Skyfall is alright. So overall, this is a modern 2000s, mid 2000s era Bond, and I really enjoyed it a lot because like I said, Texas Hold'em. It's a slow burn for me, in my opinion, and I really enjoyed Texas Hold'em. It's something that I could follow. I like the Bourne movies. Some people don't. I guess the first couple are great. In this new form of action. Some people give it shit for ripping off Bourne, but it's only just that first 10-20 minutes or whatever. The rest is just it's really focused on the game and like the spycraft of it all, and it's just a lot. I like this, that it's slower, but it's intense and it's steady, and the tension is constantly there, and it finally pays off towards the end. And then the fights in the hallway or the staircase or whatever stairway was great. Vesper Lynn, like a lot of people used to complain, oh, Bond girls are just sex toys and nothing more. Well, if you want a fleshed out female character that actually has her own, thing to do, that's not just a sex toy or whatever for Bond, well, there you go. There's your. She's a great character. She's sexy. What's her name? Eva Green. She wears this dress that's just amazing. There's good chemistry between her and Bond. At first, she doesn't want to pretend to be his girlfriend. There's a lot of good back and forth there. You can feel the romance. It's not boring. It's not bogged down. It's nicely paced. I like the more. I keep saying it's kind of slow, but it's not bogged down. It's not. You don't feel like it's boring or whatever. some of the other Bond movies, whenever he's in the romantic part of the movie, it's kind of boring, and I just want to get back to the action. And this one, I didn't mind it. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I felt like it's a good introduction for a new Bond and a new continuity, I guess. They did screw up a lot of things later on, but this one was really good, and it's not jokey like like some of the other ones. Not Connery, but what's his name? Roger Moore. That's what I don't like about his Bond is it's too hokey, too jokey. A lot of people like that, and that's fine, but that's not for me. This is a more serious, grounded. I almost compared it to like the Dark Knight or like Batman Begins. That type of grittiness. Um, this is like the Batman Begins of Bond, and I feel like that's what they were going for, really, and that's in that era. 2006, I think, is when this came out, and this is right at the same time as Batman Begins, and so it's more grounded. There's not a whole lot of gadgets. There's not a whole lot of goofiness with Q, although I like the goofiness with Q, the jokes and stuff. Like in GoldenEye, where the guy's in the telephone booth and it's like blowing up or whatever. There's none of that. There's a lot. It's a more serious Bond, and like I said, people say that it's closer to the books, and maybe that's why. So for me, it's my favorite one. I haven't seen all of them. I've seen bits and pieces of ones, but not all of them. Connery is probably my favorite, and Doctor No would be a good one to do. Um, anyway, I spoke about this movie a lot longer than I thought I would, and I want to thank Michelle. She changed her name to Michelle Fairy Tales. And who just showed up? Oh, it's my sister. Uh, why do you have... Okay, never mind. That's funny because last Friday my friend Brian Chitwood showed up in the chat. But to my sister, I'm just talking about the movie Casino Royale and what I thought about it, and just going over because it's Bond month. I don't know why my sister would be here, but I'm glad you showed up. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Michelle. I will be back here. What's today? Saturday? I'm losing track of days. I've got the next week off, with the exception of Monday, but I'll be back here on Wednesday to do the Red Hour, where I talk about a random Star Trek episode, and I think I'm talking about in the one where Data is dating that chick, and it doesn't work out. I forget the name of it. And I'll be back on Thursday to talk about another random episode of Star Trek, and then I'm back on Friday to do the DeadMan Unplugged, where I play guitar, and I cut my thumb the other day. Cut like a good chunk of it off. She says she's here because she doesn't see me often. Well, now you know that I'm here Wednesdays and Thursdays to talk about Star Trek, Friday to play guitar, And then I'm thinking about doing a Monday show where I just talk about a movie. But um, I already talked about home. I talked about it Thursday. But I'm talking about Next Generation on Wednesday. Yeah, my friend Brian Chitwood showed up last Friday. I don't know if you remember him, but so like real life people are showing up to my shows now, which I did not expect. Uh, Please hit the like and subscribe. Anyway, I will be over at Admiral Teague's show, not in the panel, but in the chat, where he talks about Enterprise, home. So the same episode. And I do random episodes here so that it's just a coincidence. I didn't plan that way. I have a random episode generator that gives me on the internet that gives me the random episode. Anyway, I want to thank my sister Michelle Ferry, or I want to thank Michelle Fairy Tale and Ashley for showing up in the chat tonight. And anybody out there that's lurking or catches this in the future, live long and prosper. And I will see you guys and gals next time.